So I brought you a little taste of Maine, and that is 1 pound of Jersey-only grass-fed butter pressed in a 200-year-old wooden family mold.
My God, look at this color. Thanks, man. That's a gift. I know you're gonna rock the house. I can't wait to hear you talk. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. How you guys doing? They told me I had to project. How's that sound? Can you guys hear me in the back? I don't want anyone to be afraid to move up a little bit. So if you're all the way back straggling, the reason I straggle, I'll tell you why I would do that. I'd be like, just in case this guy's boring, I want to be able to slip out the back. All right, so we're probably all pretty inundated with a lot of information today. If that's true, say yes. Here's what I want to do. We're going to do a quick, I call it shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. Who had an Etch-a-Sketch? Remember that toy? Put your hand up if you had that toy. And you could kind of get to something, you're like, it's looking crappy. Shake, 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 shake. Oh, it's fresh. So we're going to do that. So everybody stand up. I love the seating here. It's good, actually, huh? Look at that. Everybody's got a little Starship Enterprise zone for yourself. Okay, all we're going to do is we're going to exhale and we're going to shake from the feet. And I want to hear it. We're just decompressing from everything we've learned today. I need a fresh mind here. And a mind is connected to a body. Shake it. I want to hear exhales. There it is. I want to hear that again. Ready? Go. And we're going to sit. And we're going to do something. And if you are challenged by what we're about to do, that's okay. It's the challenge of this that's going to get our brains turned on. So sophisticated movement gets the brain activated. I want to get you guys turned up, turned on. We're going to make an okay sign with the left hand. We're going to take the right hand and we're going to interlace. Then we have 2 of those, and we're going to steeple the fingers together. I use this before something like this talk, because if I don't have a space where I can really move around, this wakes my brain up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stand there like that, and then I'm going to interlace now my middle fingers and steeple up my index finger. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to switch again, and now it's my ring fingers, and all my fingers are steepled. And then I'm going to switch again to my pinkies. Now I want to go the other way, so I'm going to do opposites. Switch my pinkies. Oh, do you have control of your pinkies? Time to biohack your pinky. All right, now we're going to go back to the ring, but now it's opposite side as before. We're going to switch one more time. Now it's the middle fingers. Yeah, you guys look awesome. We're going to switch back. Now it's thumbs again, opposite side. Am I allowed to swear up here, or is this like, am I not? So then we're going to put hands in prayer pose, and we're going to combine both the sacred and the profane by saying, Namaste, motherfuckers. Everybody at once. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Namaste, yeah, I like that. All right, let's have a good time. I know I got you guys at the end of the day, but I think we're going to make this fun. But I'm going to pretend like we're not at the end of my slideshow, AV peeps. Pretend you never saw that. So the name of the talk is ReWild Yourself. I think there's a really awesome interface, a really good interface between the biohacking world and this thing called rewilding. So the biohackers, I love it. It's like, I like to think of it as like there's a race going on between the rewilders and the biohackers. There's people like me who are like, bring it back to the Aboriginal times. And there's other people who are like, hook my brain up to machines. And we got a lot to share and a lot to learn from each other. Here's the thing, though. We are running an operating system in our mind. We think of ourselves as being free in our minds, and we don't realize sometimes that we didn't actually create this software system we're running. We're running civilization's software system. Who's ever had a Mac and switched to a PC, or had a PC and switched to a Mac? If you have, say yes, put your hand up. So you know those are 2 different operating systems. Everybody understands what I mean, right? And they're so different. And we're running a system, I'd call it Domestication 2.0. And I want to invite you to start running the neo-Aboriginal mindset. And we're going to look at what that actually means. So just so you know what we're going to do, I'm going to first talk for a minute and give you some background on what domestication is, just so I can get everybody up to speed. And then we're going to get into, okay, what do we do with this? So I'll make it practical. If it feels philosophical at first, it's because we just need that background. If that feels okay to you, say yes. What? If that feels okay, say yes. Thank you. All right. So this is all about our genetics. It's all about our DNA. And I want to kind of make that tangible to you today. So I'm going to use the example of dogs, and that's going to help us all understand ourselves a little bit. So if you're like, why is he talking about dogs? It's going to make sense in a minute. But first I want to say this. Our human hardware is 6 million years old. Wow, hominids are 6 million years old. Human beings, Homo sapiens in our modern form, in this form, are 200,000 years old. But we diverged from the chimp line, the pan-troglodytes. We split from them 6 million years ago. Your hardware, like the computer itself, 6 million years old. But the domestication operating system is only 10,000 years old. Pretty new. The first domesticated crop, the first humans to plant seeds. In other words, we've been hunting and gathering our whole existence. 10,000 years ago, that's like last week in the grand scheme of our story. And it's our story, not his story. I'll put that out there to the ladies in the room. You got to get sick of this thing. Like, his story? Whose story? Right? They call before domestication, it's called prehistory. And everything after that's his story. Because there's this practice called husbandry. Husbandry is where men rule the household, where they take a wife, and where you become the ruler over crops, plants, and livestock, animals. That's called husbandry. And we've been doing that for 10,000 years. And as soon as we started doing that, our brains shrunk. Our skeletons shrunk. We started to get arthritis. And we know this from our fossil record. The second we started to grow domesticated crops. You know all this stuff of like, oh, we shouldn't eat grains, we shouldn't have dairy, all this stuff, we hear all this stuff. It's so fragmented. But if we put it all together, if we piece and trace it back, it's like, oh, it's not that we need to drop this, drop that. It's that we got to trace it back to where it all started. And it starts with wheat 10,000 years ago. That's where domestication starts. So let's talk about what domestication is. This is a wild animal you're looking at. When you hear the word wild, it refers to entities, biological entities, that inhabit the wild, that get their food from the wild, and whose genetics are the result of natural selection. Everybody say natural selection. 1, 2, 3. Natural selection. But then there's this other thing, it's called unnatural selection. Now, that animal, Canis lupus, is the gray wolf. Science refers to it as Canis lupus. This animal is known as Canis lupus familiaris. What is that animal? It's a dog, right? Yeah, shepherd, it's a dog. Now, it looks very similar, but what do you notice that's different? Look around its neck. Oh, it's wearing a leash. In other words, it's submissive, submission. Your mission's under my mission. I have domain over you, dominion, dominance, and you are submissive. This animal is a wolf. That's a wolf. Scientifically speaking, that's a wolf. But that's a wolf that's been domesticated. All dogs are wolves. Every dog you've ever met in your life is a gray wolf, technically and scientifically. Now, that still looks a lot like the wolf, but it's been changed. Notice the urban background. Notice the collar around the neck. Notice the kind of goofy smiley face. Now, that's a lot like, still very similar. Its phenotype is similar to its wild form. But we keep tweaking it, and we can get into some strange places. That, my friends, is a wolf. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm not just saying that. That's technically a wolf. Canis lupus familiaris. That's a gray wolf. It's neither gray nor wolfy, but it gets weird, right? That's a gray wolf. It's almost embarrassing. And you know what? That animal doesn't know it's a wolf. What if somebody told it? What if somebody told you what you actually are? What you're capable of? What if you took your collar off? That's a gray wolf right there. You know it's bad when you need a Coke can to measure. So, all these different varieties of dogs, we call them breeds. Scientifically speaking, the word race is equivalent to the word breed. The word subspecies means the same thing, and of course, breed. When we talk about plants, we tend to say subspecies. When we talk about animals, we tend to say breed. And when we talk about humans, we tend to say race. So the difference between an African-descended person and a Caucasian person and an Asian-descended person is that they're different breeds of humans, but we're all the same species. In the same way that all these dogs, though they look radically different, are the same species. That makes sense to everybody? That's how scientifically, does it make sense to everybody? Yes. Thank you. That's a wolf. It looks scary, but that's because that's what it takes to survive where it comes from. That's an animal shaped by natural selection. And it lives outdoors. Anybody from the frigid north like me? Where I live, man, it gets cold. And on the coldest nights when I'm inside, bundled up and cozy by the fire, that animal's outside. When the wind chill is like 20 below and it's minus 15 degrees, that animal's outside still, shaped by its environment. You've got to be strong to survive that. Would those dogs I just showed you survive out there? How long? Hour? You let a little dog out where I live and hawks start flying overhead. That's a true story. Seen that. So that's what it takes to eat out there for him. I know it's like brutal and we're like, oh, my sensitive limbic system. I grew up with cartoons of talking animals. This is horrible. But that's just what it takes. And you know who's that wolf helping right now? Deer. What happens if you take that away from the deer? They get sick. Like up in the Northeast where Lyme's disease is ravaging the overpopulated animals because they don't have their predator present anymore. This is a symbiotic relationship. It just looks shocking to us because most of us didn't grow up seeing the death that feeds us. And this animal, this wolf, has natural behaviors which we don't like so much in our dogs, right? Like, what do you do with your dog if it gets to this point? It's like, shock collar. Now, here's the thing. If you pull its environment away, you take the environment away from the dog, you pull all that away. Let's let this settle in for a second. And you alter which individuals breed with which. In other words, you don't let them breed freely naturally, but you artificially select. For instance, if you want to make a dachshund, you pick the wolves with the longest bodies and you mate them. And then you pick the babies with the longest bodies and you mate them, and you keep doing that and they get longer and longer and shorter and shorter. Does it make sense to everybody? Yes. Does it make sense to everybody? Yes. All right, good. I like the other wolf who just hangs out watching. I wish humans were at that stage where it was like, no biggie. Like, we're so hung up on sex, right? Okay, and you got to change the food. You got to change the food. And eventually you get an animal that can't even eat its natural diet anymore. You could feed its natural diet to it, but it can no longer apprehend its food from nature. There's a difference. Over time, if you keep doing it, this animal will slowly become that animal. There's this great quote I found from Greg Hodgins. He says, and this guy studies wolves. He says, essentially, wolves have long, thin snouts and their teeth are not crowded. And domestication results in a shortening of the jaw and a shortening of the snout, a widening of the jaws, and a crowding of the teeth. Sound familiar? Domestication's written right on our faces. Through these same processes, we pulled ourselves out of our natural environment. The word domestication means of the house, of the household. In other words, your habitat has become the house. And it's having effects on us. We see it in the teeth, but we feel it as heart disease, cancer, diabetes. These are the diseases of civilization. And they do not occur in hunter-gatherer people who are eating their natural diet, at least not in any appreciable level. These are diseases we've rendered upon ourselves through the domestication process. This is the teeth of hunter-gatherer people. And anybody familiar with Weston Price's work has got to see some of this. Look at the spread on those dental arches. Imagine what it feels like to have a face like that. Think about this. Some of you do have that because you come from good stock. Some of us, our background we've been domesticated for 1,000 years, some of us. Some of us for 10,000 years. Others were hunter-gatherers 400 years ago. Wow, think about the difference. Think about the difference. There are people in this room whose parents back just 400 years were still hunting and gathering. And some people here, we have to go a long way back to get to that. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes. Imagine how good it feels to take a breath when you have nostrils that are anatomically correct. For me, I get breath on like one side. I'm like got a really crooked nose. Imagine what it's like after who eats something and then it's like, stuff is stuck in my teeth. Imagine that. It's like, look at the happy faces, you know? We, of course, know that there's something wrong, and that's why we correct it to hide that, because our brain seeks symmetry as health. And when we see distorted teeth, I'm not picking on anybody. None of us got perfect teeth, right? Maybe one or two of you. Put your hand up if you've never had a cavity. Look around, everybody. Look around. So cavities are a bone disease. There's like 5 people in this room without that bone disease. Think that might be a problem? Whoa. And that's just one of the external, that's just a window into the biology. Whoa. The fact that we will correct them so that we can hide that, and we'll plug them with mercury and whatever else we got to do to just not ever ask what's causing it. We don't want to know what's causing it because there's a big taboo against wildness. This is what we were. These dudes don't go to a CrossFit gym. How old's that guy in the middle, you think? You know any dudes in there, like, that guy, I'm estimating 70s? You know anybody who looks like that? Look at these dudes, right? That's just from living. And if you think, it's a hard life, know that hunter-gatherers work about an average of 15 hours a week to meet their needs. 15 to 18 hours a week in the hardest places in the world. It's way harder to live how we live. It takes more energy. And what do? We work to get money to buy calories that we then eat, that we then go to a gym to burn off. But we're doing work to burn them off that yields no result. So if the treadmills at the gym were at least hooked into the power grid maybe and we could make electricity, it would be worth it. But we're just burning off the energy. What? This is just the natural state of Homo sapien. We have created an ideal that is a pretty far cry. We call these people models, and it's funny to me because the model should be what the actual ideal. But we're into some kind of sort of, we are the chihuahuas to the gray wolf. That's what we've become. All right, that was our background. You guys feeling good? All right, ready for more? All right, so we're all up to speed here. Whoa, we got domesticated. Snap. What do we do? So there was some really interesting work. You know, the cow, the domesticated cow, comes from an animal called the auroch, and it is a big, powerful animal, bison-like, powerful animal. But the last one went extinct in 1627. So the animal, we just looked at the wolf, dogs come from wolves, but we still have wolves in the wild. But the animal that the cow comes from is gone, extinct. All we have left is the human artifact, the creation we call the cow. Hitler thought, let's back-engineer the cows back into aurochs, and we can use that to sell our Third Reich story or whatever. Which is crazy, because he wanted a master race. What is that? Hunter-gatherers, basically? Does that make sense to everybody? What they were into was actually creating chihuahuas. But to do it, they wanted to sell this idea of back-breeding cows into aurochs, so they tried it. These guys called the Heck brothers, they bred all of these cows. And instead of choosing the traits that you think will make the animal more how you want it for domestication, they chose cows that had the most wild type. And they bred them and bred them and bred them. And what they found is, oops, it doesn't work. They got a really cool-looking cow, but they didn't get back to the aurochs. What we know is you can't go back. We can't go back. We got to go forward. And somehow we've got to, at the same time that we're living in Star Trek land, right? We're literally in a science fiction movie now. Through that, we still have to honor this 6 million year old biology we come to the table with. You don't just change that. It doesn't work. We tried that. You can't alter the conditions and stay healthy. So we have to figure out a lifestyle that we can live that honors a 6 million-year-old frame, but we need software that's going to carry us through this tech age. Make sense? Yes. Okay, this is my logo, but it's not really a logo to me. So I put this on all my work, but really what it is for me, this glyph is it's like a magician who does a memorization trick. In their mind, they take bits of data and they hang it on a pegboard. That's how they remember these things, and they blow us away with how they do it. It's like, wow, how did you remember that? We're going to use this symbol to peg some different information to it. This is an operating system for your mind, and in fact, this operating system is already embedded in your mind, and you'll see that in a second. Each of those little components of that means something. What we're going to focus on today are the 4 elements. So you can see in the upper left, air, right, fire, down here, earth, and over there, bottom left, water. Who's ever heard of earth, water, air, and fire? If you have, say yes. That's the 4 elements. Turns out we find that in the native traditions anywhere we go in the world. This is ancient stuff, and it's embedded deep in your mind. We kind of got into this idea that that's antiquated information. Right now we have, how many elements do we have in the periodic table now? We keep making new ones. It's like over 100, right? And we think of those as the elements. But in reality, these elements are actually states of matter. You can think of earth as solids. You can think of water as liquids, air as gases, and fire as plasma. So the 4 elements are scientifically today called the 4 states of matter. Does that make sense? Would anyone like me to say that another way? If we take a solid substance like ice is solid state water, and we add energy to that ice, and it heats thermally, it begins to dissociate its bonds, and what does it become? Liquid water. And if we heat it further and we add thermal energy, that liquid water will start to dissociate yet further. It'll expand 1,700 times, and it'll become what? Steam, the gaseous form of water. And if we could heat it beyond that, like the conditions in space, it would dissociate further and it would become plasma. That's what the sun is made of. That's what stars are made of, plasma. That's what lightning arcs are. That's what the aurora borealis is. It's a state of matter called plasma. It's hard to hold it in your hands. It's too hot. Make sense? Now we call that the 4 states of matter. Our ancestors called it the 4 elements. Does that make sense? All right, let's make it a little more plain yet again. Think of the earth itself. The crust of the earth is solid. Floating on top of the earth is this whole sphere. The earth is a geosphere of solid stuff. We could go outside right now and knock on, it's like hard rock, right? Floating on top of that is a sphere. On top of the geosphere is a sphere of water. It's called the hydrosphere. That's all the water on the earth, and it floats on top of the solid stuff. And there's another sphere that floats on top of that. It's made of gas. We call it the atmosphere. Atmos means vapor. And here's the best part. We always think that we live next to the sun, but we actually live inside the sun. All the planets of the solar system are in a layer of the sun. We're in what's called the heliosphere, and it extends out past the Kuiper belt. All the planets are inside a layer of the sun, but that layer is made of energy. Everybody with me on that? So what we have is solid stuff. On top of that is liquid stuff. On top of that is gaseous stuff. On top of that is just pure energy that's all around us in space, called plasma. It's what the nebula are made of. Now, here on Earth, we could go out to a natural environment, and look, we could find all 4 of those in one place. It's like, oh, there's earth, and there's rocks and the solid stuff. There's water. We see that there's gas, there's air, and then the sunlight. That's fire. Make sense to everybody? Now, here's what's so weird about it. We have to eat all that. When we talk about nutrition and diets, people are so myopic sometimes. It's like food, 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 food. There's a lot more to nutrition than food. There's earth. We eat stuff that grows up out of the earth. And here's the thing. Everything you eat, everything is a life form. You notice that? We don't eat rocks, right? We have to eat life forms that can eat rocks, pass those minerals up the food chain. Vegans love to act this game they play like, it's so wrong to eat animals, but it's totally okay to eat plants and mushrooms and bacteria because the world's a hierarchy of life forms. It's like, what? That's so speciesist. The fact is, everything on your plate is either a dead body or a dismembered body part. It might be the wing of a chicken or the floret of a broccoli, but we eat body parts. Solid stuff. We eat solid things. That's why we got teeth to chew it. Everybody get that? But we drink liquid stuff. Isn't that just as important as the food we eat? We got to drink. It's actually more important. You can't go very long otherwise. But we also have to breathe stuff. We have to breathe gas. Who's got a phone on? Uh-huh. My men in the suits. There he is right there. Could have been me. We also require the photon energy of the sun as a nutrient. You all know that. We need it to make vitamin D. We need it to regulate our neurotransmitters. It's as important. Think you could be healthy on a really good organic diet living in a cave and never getting sunlight? Could you be on the best diet ever and hold your breath? Why is it that we don't consider water, the air we breathe, and the sunlight that we get as nutrients? They are. Think about a fish tank, aquarium. You got your fish in there. That's you. That's your cells. What do we need to keep that aquarium alive? The aquarium is what? It's like an ecosystem. We got to put food in there. Earth. We got to keep the water levels up. Water. We got to put that bubbler in there. Air. It's like the lung. And what do we need? That full spectrum light to replicate the sun, because the fish need all 4 of those, and you need all 4 of those. What if we have really shitty water, but did I say that? What if we have really crappy water, but really good fish flakes? How are the fish going to be? Not that healthy, right? What if I hook a cigarette up to the air intake and we give them really good water and really good food? How healthy are they going to be? What if we take away the light? Do you see what I'm saying? You need all 4 equally. And if we want to put a health system together, we need to have all 4 of those. And we need to be optimizing our exposure to all of those. Now, what's beautiful about our life in nature is all that is easy. But when we start living in LA, it's a little trickier. And everywhere's a little different, because if you're in LA, you know what? You got a lot of sun. That's great. I live in the north. We got half the year we can't make vitamin D from the sun. But I got fresh air, and y'all don't have that. I had to say y'all there, like. Does that make sense? Everywhere you go, and who's done this game? Where do I want to live? Well, this sounds great, but it's a little cold. This sounds great, but it's too wet. It's like there's nowhere perfect, right? We kind of got to base it off what we like, who we like, and what is best for us. For instance, if you're really darkly skin pigmented, you're going to do a lot better here than you're going to do in the Northeast, because you just need more vitamin D. If you are very fair complected and you want to move to, let's say, Australia, what happens? You get fried. Make sense? Biologically, we used to all be adapted to different places. Now we've mixed everybody up, and now everybody's adapted to nowhere except their houses. We're domesticated. We're of the house. And we've adapted ourselves to indoor environments, but turns out that's not working too good for us right now. And most of us know it, but we like to lie to ourselves. And nobody wants to stick out too much. Like, people don't really want to talk about the fact that their phones are affecting their eyesight. You all know it is. You can tell. You know it does. It gives you headaches, too. But we don't want to talk about it too much because nobody else is saying anything. I don't want to be the one to say it. And we all know how much we crave time in nature. It's so funny. I love this thing of like for guys, for instance. Sorry, ladies, but I'm a guy, so I have to speak from the guy perspective. It's like you work your ass off to get enough money to do what? Go on a hunting trip? You mean like what we used to do before we had jobs, before we were domesticated? We tend to call those things recreation, which is a funny way of saying recreation. we recreate what was natural for us. We hide a lot of things in our language. I want you to think about this. Just like in that middle of that glyph that I showed you, there was a dark circle and a light circle. We're going to think of the dark circle as nutrition. That's stuff that's inputs. That white circle we're going to think of as elimination. That's outputs, right? Stuff goes in, stuff comes out. When we put water in, what happens? Water's got to come back out. We put food in, what comes out? We breathe in, then what do? We breathe back out. We take in light from the sun, and then we radiate infrared light back out. Our bodies are really cool. There's 4 ways into them and 4 ways out of them. 4 ways in, 4 ways out. So we take food, solid stuff, soil. What do we call it when somebody shits their pants? He soiled himself. It's literally stuff from the soil goes in and then soil comes back out. Pretty cool system. Maybe we should stop shitting in the last fresh water on earth and wiping our butts with the last trees. The old system made way more sense. No, we care about the environment, really. I have a Prius. I don't mean to be irreverent, but I am, so it's pretty obvious when I talk. So we put water in, liquids go in, urine comes back out. Pretty cool system. Pretty awesome system. We breathe air in, so gases from the atmosphere, which we call inspiring, which means to spiral inward. And then we exhale, or what we call expire, that air back out. And literally we take sunlight in and we put, has anybody ever got to play with thermal imaging? It's so neat to see that, oh my God, people do have a light body. It's just in a frequency of light that we can't see well with our naked eyes. But every one of you glows right now with infrared heat. And actually, there's a lot in this room. You can feel it. It's thermal. It's warm. We're emitting light right now. And one of the ways we get rid of that excess heat that we build up is we sweat. It's literally energy in, energy out. Make sense to everybody? You see how really quickly it starts to become obvious how to take care of your body, actually? It's like, oh, I got 4 things to think about. It's, okay, wait a second. I need to make sure I'm doing all those. People get really off the, way off track into different areas of this, particularly food. People get so obsessed, I mean, I've been there, obsessed with food. And they will take that so far, and they don't think about the water they're drinking or the air in their apartment or getting enough sunlight. It's like, wait a second. It's not very holistic. You know what I mean? I think people take it too far. So let's break this down a little bit, and we'll make it simple, and we'll talk about some specifics. That is your digestive system. It regulates Earth. What's so cool about this system is it's just one long tube. From your lips to your anus, you tube. It's just one long tube. You don't put food in your body, you put food in a tube. If I put an inner tube in the middle of this room, now think about this, you guys stay with me. We did the finger exercise, everyone's brain's on, right? What? Okay, I got an inner tube right here. I step into that hole in the middle. Am I inside the tube? No. I'm still outside the tube. If I want to get in the tube, what do I got to do? Puncture a hole in its skin. If we follow my lips around, which are made of skin, mucous membranes, and we follow that around down, does it ever end? Does the skin ever just end? No. The tube goes all the way through, right to my butt. And right on the other side of my butt, skin. It's just a long tube. It's like I stacked up a bunch of inner tubes. If I stack up a bunch of inner tubes and I get inside, am I inside the tubes? I'd have to puncture a hole. If you get food inside your body, that's called infection. You'll get an infection. You can't put food in your body. That's crazy talk. What you can do is drop it in the tube and let your bacteria eat it. And then they'll break it down and they'll upload it into your system. They'll upload it to the villi in your small intestine. And then it can go in your bloodstream. Everybody with me on that? You tracking? Cool, YouTube. A couple things I want you to think about. 4 food groups: animals, plants, fungi, bacteria. This is the real deal. That one we got sold before was just about selling grains. I think everybody gets that now, right? That was like the Dairy Council and the Grain Council being like, how can we cook up a diet to feed the slaves? We gotta market this stuff. So here's the thing. Humans are hunter-gatherers. We're not gatherers alone. We're not hunters alone. The paleo world, you dudes are huge, so don't kick my ass after for saying anything about paleo. But sometimes it's like, okay, look, this caveman thing is not real. That never existed. That's a caricature from the Flintstones. That never existed. And are there people living in caves today, like in Afghanistan, for instance? Are there people living in caves? Yes, right? Those are cavemen then, I suppose? Does that make sense? They're still cavemen, but that whole thing of wearing like rotting skins and with the spear and all that, that's a caricature. We know that these people were the same as us anatomically, very sophisticated people. They hunted and they gathered. The paleo world is very hunter-focused, and the vegetarian world's very gatherer-focused. And it's like, come on, people, let's merge. We got to do both. But there's more than that. We need more than just plants and animals. We need fungi, we need bacteria. So I'm going to break it down real quick. We eat animals for their fat. And in their fat, the nutrients they store in their body fat. Like vitamin A, which is not in plants. People always talk about, oh, it's kale, it's so high in vitamin A. No, it's high in provitamin A, which is called beta-carotene. And that's not vitamin A, and it's hard to convert that. We need that stuff from animals. We know you need B12. I love vegans. You should be vegan. It's so natural. Where are you going? To get my B12 injection. It's like, oh, so it's a nutrient-deficient diet? Oh, well, then it can't be natural, or we'd all be dead. So we need that, right? But we need plants, too. Plants are our pharmacy. That's where we get our drugs from. We get all our drugs from there. And by the way, the pharmaceutical industry still gets their drugs from there. They either learn the drug and synthesize it from plants, or they extract it from plants. But the thing is this is how it works. The plants that you've been eating are domesticated. They don't have their drugs in them anymore. So you can't let food be your medicine because there's no medicine in the food, because lettuce and broccoli are pathetic compared to the wolf of lettuce and broccoli, the wild form. There's wild broccoli, there's wild lettuce, and there's drugs in them that are plants. But they're bred out, kind of like the toughness being bred out of that dog. And so we're hungry for drugs. Our bodies need them, so the pharmaceutical industry sell them to us. This is where herbalism can really help some of y'all, because you can get into wild plants, herbs or wild plants, and get those drugs in your body, and they help to modulate your system. We need fungi because guess what? Fungi, which is more closely related to us than plants, fungi regulates our immune system. Medicinal mushrooms regulate our immune system. They fight off cancer. Everybody's got cancer cells, but mushrooms upgrade your white blood cells and teach them to attack cancer cells, and they kill cancer cells, and they convince cancer cells to commit suicide. It's a true story. You know, if you take a mushroom and you leave it out in the sun, anyone know what happens? You dry a mushroom in the sun, it produces vitamin D. That's pretty cool. We need mushrooms to regulate these kind of things. Our immune system, they're anti-cancer, really valuable to us. And we need to eat bacterially rich foods, which we call fermented foods, to keep our gut flora, in other words, all those guys who live in our tube. There are 10 times more bacteria on and in your tube than you have human cells. So it's kind of really not that accurate to call ourselves human, because we're mostly not human. We're only a little bit human. We're mostly human cells taken care of or farmed by these microbes. And when we eat things like sauerkraut or kimchi or whatever it is that we fermented, we fill the tube back up with the good guys. And they work like an immune system for us. And they feed us. Remember what I said before? They upload the goodies to us. We want to keep our digestive system clean and cleansed. In other words, we don't want to be bioaccumulating stuff in our liver, in our gut tube. We want to keep stuff moving. There's a lot of techniques for this, and I've got a lot of interviews and stuff on my website. You can go look and learn more about these cleansing techniques. There are cleansing techniques that even the most hard-headed of you can do. Because I know, like, sometimes it looks really hippie, some of this stuff. But the biggest one, for me, is if you don't poop like this, you're playing Play-Doh Factory with your butt. I don't... There is literally a ligament that wraps around your colon that is engaged when you're sitting like this. So you have to force your poop around that. It's so unnatural to us. Humans everywhere in the world have always put... we don't talk about poop, right? It's like, oh my God, poop! Oh my God. Right? We don't talk about it, so no one ever talks about it, so we don't realize how many medical issues there are in the poop field. Ha ha. Get your feet up. Get your colon in a position. John Crapper invented the toilet. True story. We call it the throne because he wanted to create a throne because prior to that, royalty used to have these toilets so they could always sit on a throne because it was unseeming for them to have to squat. And when we got plumbing, John Crapper was like, everybody can have their own throne. True story. Can't make this stuff up. All right. Our kidneys, our renal system, regulate the fluids of our body. When we eat, you remember I said it's a tube, you put stuff in this end, it comes out this end. Ooh, easy. But we don't have a tube system with a water, right? So I think a lot of times people imagine you put water in and there's like a tube that goes to where you pee from or something. But that's not how it works. You put water in and that water absorbs into your blood, and the water you drink is your blood. Put your hand up if you've got only a glass bottle here that you're drinking from right now. Oh, look around. Everybody else is drinking xenoestrogens. And putting that plastic into your bloodstream. Ooh. Wow. For women, we know what that does. Fibroid tumors, breast tumors, problems with the menstrual cycle. For guys, we know what that does. Look around out there. Ladies, are the guys quite as masculine as they were maybe 20 years ago? Any women have any complaints? Women are being hyper-feminized and men are being feminized, and one of the ways that's happening is we're consuming a lot of plastic. And plastic is not a biodegrader. We know that, right? It's like, oh, it lasts forever in a landfill. Plastic's a photodegrader. That means the light breaks the plastic down, and the plastic's got water in it. Where's the plastic go? Into the water, which we then drink. We want to be real mindful of that. I have a website. If you've got a pen and paper, write this down. My website is called findaspring.com. And I recommend people, when you can, going to springs and actually getting your own water. I know, crazy, but you can do that. I do that 95% of my time. And there are people here in LA who are doing that. If you do that, can you put your hand up for a second? Who's ever gone to springs to get their water? It's awesome, right? Water that's actually fresh. It's like, would you want to eat dried food every day? You want fresh food, right? But if you never had fresh food, you might not realize you were eating food that had no life left in it. And when you go to a spring and you get water from nature, it's like, oh, snap, this is fresh water. It's got properties. I'll tell you about those properties. One is its temperature. It's cold. And when water's cold, it starts to contract. It'll contract to 4 degrees, and then what does it do again? Weird, anomalous. Anyway. When it starts to contract, the molecules get more dense, which means a given volume of water has more water in it. There's actually more water in cold water because the molecules are closer together. That happens at springs. You might notice that you feel more refreshed by drinking cool or cold water. I know there's people who are like, no, you can't, it's bad for your spleen, but like, I'll tell you what, if right now in this room, I'm feeling warm. Anybody else feeling warm? It's like if I hand you some warm water right now, it's like. How about the TDS? That's how much total dissolved solids are in your water. This is something for you to think about. These are the minerals which we call electrolytes, and they're in water. You know, we usually think of water as a conductor of electricity, right? But it's not. Water's an insulator. Distilled water, water that has no minerals in it, can't conduct electricity unless we add in minerals, which we call electrolytes, and those electrolytes can conduct electricity. You happen to be bioelectric, so you probably want some minerals in your water, which is why reverse osmosis water is not only not very hydrating, but actually strips our bodies of minerals. And so there's this big thing of purified water. There is no purified water in nature. Water from nature, which we're adapted to because we always lived in nature before we moved inside, right? We used to not even have that word inside because there wasn't any place that was that, so we invented it. Now we're drinking filtered water, and a lot of times that water, now I understand there's a lot of things we do want to filter out, but if we're going to drink something like reverse osmosis filtered water, like from those machines, maybe you go to a health food store and fill up your bottles or whatever, or you've got an RO unit at your house, you might want to add a little bit of natural sea salt back to that to get some minerals back into that water. And if you're drinking the tap water, you need to do some research on this. Because that fluoride that's in that water, which is an industrial waste product, which is not cleaned up, which is not pharmaceutical-grade fluoride, which damages your teeth, accumulates in your bones, and has a soft tissue target in your body called the pineal gland. Do you know the pineal gland is the #1 soft tissue target in your body for fluoride? If you're drinking tap water, you're hardening your pineal gland. All our ancestors said, the pineal gland's the third eye, and what we now know is the pineal gland, which is in the center of your head, actually has photoreceptors. It is an eye. And the light that comes in your eye is converted into electrical impulses, which are fed to the center of your brain. And if you're drinking fluoride, you're shutting that whole system down. You don't want to drink tap water, is what I'm saying. The pH of the water. People get into this whole thing of alkalinity. Everything's got to be alkaline. Alkaline, alkaline, alkaline. If you're like that, I'm sorry. I know I'm picking on it. But sometimes I'm like, do you even know what pH stands for? I'll ask people that. Next time somebody comes up to you to tell you about you should be on an alkaline diet, you need a water alkalizer, would be like, what's pH stand for? What does it stand for? Potential of hydrogen. It's a measurement of hydrogen ions. It's a measurement of acidity versus alkalinity. Water that's distilled is the baseline, 7. Anything below 7 is considered acid. Anything above is considered alkaline. Water, in my experience, I've been to hundreds of springs, natural springs around the world, the kind of water that human beings grew up drinking, and it's almost always slightly acidic. And we know that because when we're really thirsty, would you rather I gave you alkaline water or water with lemon in it? Lemon, right? It's like, ooh, acid, hydrating. It's like you've been out drinking all night and you're like, orange juice. You ever notice if you squeezed out a lemon into a glass and you took the equivalent amount of water, which one do you think is more hydrating? Thirst quenching. Isn't it weird that the equivalent amount of water is less hydrating than the equivalent amount of lemon juice? Something about acidity? I could go on all day about this stuff, and I won't bore you, but I will say one more piece, which is that water should have gases in it. Has anyone left a glass of water out in the sun and noticed little bubbles forming all over the inside of the glass? That is the carbonic acid leaving your water. Those are gases that are dissolved in water, and they should be in there, and when they're gone, that water does not taste hydrating, or it doesn't taste wet. It feels not hydrating in your mouth. And when we filter water, we strip that out. That's basically carbon dioxide. There's a lot of it in water that's carbonated. Has anyone ever been to a naturally carbonated spring? Colorado Springs, man, there's right outside of that, there's I think there's 11 there. They come out, it's soda water out of the ground. Natural water has these gases dissolved in it, but we strip that out. So we want to be thinking about that. So those are just a few places and pointers. I get a lot of work online about water. And if you're interested in learning more, why would we be interested? Maybe because our bloodstream is made of water that we drink. Maybe because your brain's floating in the cerebral spinal fluid made from the water that you drink. We might want to think about the quality of that water. And we want to keep flushing too, right? We don't just want to be pouring water in and it just stays in, right? We need to keep that elimination happening too. So sometimes it's really good to use herbs like dandelion. Does anyone know the French name for dandelion? Pissenlit. Means to piss your bed. It's a diuretic. It makes you pee more. So you're doing a cleanse or you want to clean out your bloodstream, you can use herbs to help you do that. There's a lot of ways to do that. I like to drink about 500 milliliters of water first thing when I wake up in the morning. Get my system going and hydrate up because all night I've been losing moisture through outgassing. Right? You're literally losing moisture with every breath. When it gets cold out, you see your breath. It's like, oh, I lose moisture when I breathe. Can't usually see that. That's why this air is so humid in right now, right? This air is humid because your blood plasma is in the air right now. You've been losing it all this whole time. We got to keep that topped up. Make sense? Okay, our respiratory system. This is more about making sure the air in our habitat is good than it is about trying to do anything specifically to the lungs, because the air we breathe is environmental. The air in your house is about 98% more polluted than the air outside all the time. That's just always true, even if you live in LA, because the air inside your house is the LA air trapped in your house. Filled with the carpets outgassing, the countertops outgassing, your couch outgassing, your computer outgassing. What are they outgassing? Volatile organic compounds like formaldehyde, which we breathe and basically accumulate in our body. Make sense? Really important that we keep aware of the air in our habitat. Here's a few techniques I'm going to give you. Ions. You want to get an ion generator. Ions like ozone are what's in the air after a thunderstorm, and you go outside and you go, oh, fresh air. By the way, when something's fresh, it means it has spare electrons. For the geeks out there, you'll know what that means. When the air loses its electrons and it's all positively charged, it's very polluted, and it doesn't feel refreshing. If I could kick a hole right now into the outside and that air rushed in and it hit your face right now, how would it feel from outside? Even though it's LA air, you'd be like, oh, it's like water in the desert after you've been inside, right? Fresh air, it's got an electrical property called ions. You can buy an ion generator. Get that in your house. Particulates are like dust. And dust is some nasty shit, right? What is dust? Dead skin. Ew. You know when you see it in the air, when it's like, oh, you've got like a projector on or something and you see all that dust? That's your skin filled with mites. And that means the whole room's like that. You want a high-efficiency particulate air filter, a HEPA filter, and you want to pull that out. Clean that air up. Humans aren't meant to live inside, but if we're going to, we better make the air like outside air. Humidity is a big one. You get the humidity too high, your house molds. You get it too low, your nose bleeds. I keep a little humidity meter at my house, and I just sort of keep it in my sweet spot. Your sweet spot's going to be different. 40% for me, good, I'm bueno. It gets too dry, I'm like, ow. It gets too wet, and I feel like I'm rotting. Anyone ever been out of the tropics? I was like, oh, the tropics, it's paradise. I get down there, it's like, my books are molding, my clothes have mildew on them. This sucks. Gases. So I said everything's outgassing. How do we get gases out of the air? A filter can't get gases out of the air. What gets gases out of the air? Anyone know? Plants. Ooh, NASA did a lot of research on this, and you can find their document online. NASA asked the question, how do we seal astronauts inside of these space stations filled with plastic that's outgassing like crazy? How do we just leave them in there? They were like, we got to make sure we protect them from that. So they started studying common houseplants and what their ability to pull these noxious gases out of the air was. And they found that if the soil interface, in other words, where the plant's plugged into the soil, if that soil is exposed, the plant and the bacterial action there will actually pull and sequester things like formaldehyde and take that out of your air. So there's a little trip, right? You just get an ion generator, you keep the humidity up, you get a HEPA filter, and you get plants, and bang, you got air that's a lot more like outside air. Make sense? Yes. Does it make sense? Yes. All right, because you guys had me wondering there for a second. I really like in the mornings to purge the air out of my lungs. So first thing in the morning, or when you get to your movement session, hopefully you've got one, you want to be doing this kind of a thing. What happens there is we squeeze out the sponge of the lower lung fields and press all that formaldehyde-ridden air out of us. Make sense? Yes. There's a lot more to that, and you can find that stuff online by checking out some of my interviews and such. This last piece is a two-part system. So I said Earth was our digestive system, and water, it's like our renal system, and air we regulate through the respiratory system. There's an I in there where people like to leave it out, the respiratory, but it's actually respiratory system. But we deal with fire, the plasma of the sun, through two systems combined. One is the photovoltaic cell we call our skin or integumentary system. That's like literally like a photovoltaic cell. It's like a solar panel. And we use that to make vitamin D. But then also we use our nervous system, which includes our eyeballs. Eyeballs are the periscopes of the central nervous system. Because the central nervous system's hidden in the darkness. To know what's going on, you got to put out little periscopes. It's your eyeballs. What? Okay, so when you're in the presence of light, light literally goes through a hole in your eyeball called the pupil, and it's fed down the optic nerves, which crisscross and eventually feed through a kind of a complex system that ends up in your pineal gland. And that regulates your circadian rhythm, which is your daily cycle, your annual rhythm, your lunar rhythm. These are rhythms that are literally regulated by our light. Now, we've really altered the light that we get exposed to. It used to be, what light were you exposed to? The sun, campfires. Now we're exposed to light all day long. It's like it's always the middle of summer and the noontime, right? Your system loses track of when it is. Humans are confused about where they are and when it is. So our nervous system literally runs on plasma energy, fire energy. It's so cool. We take in the light of a star to fuel our nervous system. Pretty awesome. Can't write this stuff. A couple things I want you to think about. One, sunlight exposure. You need more. You just do. You need more. If right now we pulled your pants off and your ass looks like a full moon, just reflecting light, you need more sun. If you've got tan lines, time to pick up your game. Tan lines are so domesticated. Maybe you need a secret spot you hike to. Maybe you need like a little nook. Maybe it's a rooftop. You need more sun. Yeah, you don't want areas of your skin not getting exposed to sun. You want to get as much, you want to sequester as much as you can. Now, of course, if you're very fair pigmented, you need less, and if you're darkly pigmented, you need more. And it's a fact that dark people living in areas with not a lot of sunlight end up vitamin D deficient. Just like people whose skin doesn't have melanin get burned and can even cause some problems for themselves by being in places with lots of sun. So we need to look at ourselves and determine how much sun we need for ourselves. But you don't want to let go of your tan ever. Your tan is your sunscreen. Who feels good when they have a tan? And you know what? Here's the thing. I like tanning beds. Whatever, I'll just say it. I don't care. Because what I found is, anyone found this? Like, even if it's like middle of winter and you're pale and you go tanning, and everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't do that, it's so bad for you. But you're like, yeah, but I feel damn good. It does not feel good to be pale. It's sickly. It's actually kind of gross. And the darker skinned somebody is, when they get pale, they start to look like a green color. It's like, ew, you need more sun. We need lots of it. Now, we make vitamin D in our skin, and something that's interesting is this. You can actually wash that off. So if you get vitamin D on your skin because you've been outside, it takes 48 hours to absorb it all. So you don't want to get in there with all the soap and get all zestfully clean and lose that. You want to absorb as much of that as you can, so water only. Make sense? Soap is so domesticated. Grounding. Now, we also get free electrons. We're almost done. You guys good? We're almost there. Stick with me. We get free electrons by being barefoot on the ground or in contact with grounded surfaces. The earth actually feeds electrons into us. Earlier I said the freshness is actually the presence of negative electricity. It's electrons. Things that are bad for us are almost always positively charged. That's why products like charcoal are good for us, because charcoal is negatively charged and it absorbs positively charged things which are bad for us. We want as much electrons as we can. That's the whole thing about antioxidants. They have free electrons. Well, when we stand on the ground, we get free electrons, and the freest of them, and they help to remove inflammation from our body and feed the electricity into us that we need. Now, that was all bueno because we just walked around naked in the sun barefoot, and then we were like, hey, I have this idea. Let's put insulators on our thumb and cover ourselves with clothes, and we'll move indoors. It'll be awesome. We can play Jenga and watch TV. It's going to be so cool. EMF awareness. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but a couple suggestions. Power down your Wi-Fi at night when you go to bed. Power down your phone or put it on airplane mode when you go to bed. Stop holding it to your head. The research is in, just nobody wants to talk about it. It's not good for you. And get yourself this app called Flux, which will figure out where you are in the world. It's a free app for your computer, and it will actually change the frequency of light coming out of your computer when the sun sets where you are. And it'll go from blue noontime light. Who's ever walked by a house when there's a TV on and you see, like, it's at night and you see that blue glow coming? Blue light tells our bodies that it's noontime in the day. When we watch TV, we look into computers, we look at our iPhone at night, it upsets our circadian rhythm. I wear orange-colored sunglasses when I compute at night. And I use this app, Flux. and I sleep way better for it. I can't stress that enough. The last thing is thermoregulation. Your body's constantly building up heat and dumping heat. And you want to be thinking about this. This is an important health piece, is making sure your body's thermoregulated. Not wearing clothes that cause you to overheat and not letting yourself get too cold. Now, the flip of that is sometimes you do want to do those things, like getting in a sauna and hyperheating yourself for a second. Getting in a cold shower. Oh, now it's you, though. Getting in a shower and cooling yourself. I end every one of my showers. I end 80% of my showers cold, cold, cold. But I'm constantly thinking about what's my body temperature. You guys live in a place where you can get hyperthermic, and that can kill you. I live in a place where you can get hypothermic. That can kill you. What's the number one cause of death in the wilderness? Hypothermia. So fire is a lot about regulating our body temperature, right? That's why we make fires. The best way to cleanse that system is to sweat. And when you sweat, you get fat-soluble toxins out of your body, and particularly out of your liver. And I think you guys already heard a talk on it. I won't go there for now, but I'll just say sweat, 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 because it does something for your body you can't get by sweating through exercise. You exercise, your central nervous system is stimulated. Sympathetic nervous system is turned on. Your detoxification pathways shut off. You get in a sauna, your body relaxes. It's like you're in meditation. It's a hack. And you actually start to open your detoxification pathways. That's really important for people living in toxic land that we live in, artifact land where we live. So that's just an intro to rewilding, the rewilding lifestyle. The idea is this: don't fight 6 million years of hardware. Change your software. Change your operating system to one that's natural and hack that software. Why hack Domestication 2.0? It's already a mess. We just need to dump it. Take on a natural paradigm. I'm calling it an operating system, but you could also call that a paradigm. Take on a natural paradigm and then hack that thing. Make sense? Okay, quickly, just a plug. My website, danielvitalis.com, I have a free magazine there. I'm doing 8 issues total. This thing is content dense, and it gets deep into this stuff. And it's free, and you can get it on my website. I have findaspring.com that can help you find water. That's the real deal. I want you guys to take a look and find spring water. You can do that when you travel, and that's a fun adventure to set up for yourself, a little vacation, yeah, to get yourself outside and to get water for yourself. Yeah? I put out all my newsletters with the full moon and the new moon, and my magazine comes out with the solar holidays, so it's designed to tune you back to nature, so you can find all that there. I really appreciate every one of you who've come up to me while I've been at my table and say such nice things to me. I really appreciate that, and I thank you all for your awesome attentiveness. We'll talk soon.